I can't do it.
Okay.
We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
All right, welcome in. It's Wednesday, November 6th. It's the Daily Puck Drop. We welcome you in. We are live inside the Puck Sports Studios, built by Limback Lumber. Contractors, we tell you all the time. They've got free deliveries, everything from whole house packages to homeowner DIY projects, the largest stock moldings in the Northwest. Old school service, because they've been doing it since 1930. Give Limback Lumber a call, 206-782-3487. Visit them online at limbacklumber.com. Follow on all the social media platforms. We got Puck 2040 on Twitter. Instagram is Puck Sports. Also, Puck Sports there on TikTok. It's actually Puck_sports there on TikTok. And, of course, Jason Puckett there on Facebook. We post, if you don't know, all of our show content, like little video clips on all those social media platforms at the conclusion of every single day. We welcome you in. Normally, you would have the go-to guy, Jim Moore, here Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and he was planning to be here. But he got called away. He's got something personal going on with his wife. His wife was going to a doctor, and she just had not an emergency, but just something he had to go attend to. I don't want to share too much. He's okay. She's okay. But just letting you know that that Jim was going to be here, but then had to get called away. So, again, hopefully everything's okay with the Moore household. Kathy's okay and Jim's okay, but no Jim Moore today. Hopefully he'll be back there on Friday. Okay, it is a Wednesday show. We have shuffled some things around due to schedules. You will hear from Rob Staton from SeahawksDraftBlog.com. You're also going to hear from Ryan Divish is back, the human pony keg, and another, I like to call it not the hot stove off-season talk, more like the cold stove. So that's what I'm going to go with. It's the Mariners cold stove offseason there with Ryan Divish. We'll talk to Div coming up at 10:30 today. Normally he'd be at 11, and Rob would be at 10:30. We had to flip-flop those two today. So you're going to hear from Divish coming up bottom of the hour. He brought back there with Adam Jude the Extra Innings podcast, so we'll discuss that. They went over their whole offseason. It's something that the three of us will do, probably coming up very soon, kind of another deep dive there as well. And then Rob is going to join the show a little after 11, probably 11:05 today, and we'll talk about, obviously, what's going on with the Seahawks, the DK Metcalf thing, and kind of the trade talks. Something that was brought up yesterday with Danny Kelly that I found interesting. And it wasn't like, I don't think they should pull a Jim Mora. I just wondered, and is it okay to at least just ask and bring it up? Just bring it up. Did they get it right with Mike McDonald? And again, I prefaced it after 9 games. It's just a fun hypothetical sitting around a bar to talk about it. That's it. We recorded yesterday. Speaking of the Cougs playoff chances, college football playoffs came out yesterday at 4:00. They come in at number 21. We recorded the old Crimson Cougars podcast for all you Coug fans out there and non-Coug fans. It's open, and we welcome anyone to watch and listen to it. We recorded it after the rankings came out, and we kind of broke it all down. Myself, Jim, Paul Sorensen, former All-American safety at Washington State, and then Jamie Vinnick from CougFan.com. So we broke it all down and kind of their chances of making it in. And then, of course, looking ahead to Utah State, and address something yesterday that we'll get to here in a little bit as well, is the future of Jake Dickert, that John Canzano, something that Canzano brought up yesterday that I found interesting, to say the least, about the future there of Jake Dickert. We got to touch in on Joel Embiid at some point, because I gotta ask why. Why is Joel Embiid facing suspension? So, again, Divish coming up bottom of the hour at 10:30. Rob Staton coming up at 11 o'clock. And then, of course, we wrap up every single day with Hey, What the Puck, all brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle. On your QR code there, if you're watching it on the stream, if you're on Twitter, if you're on YouTube, that's going to take you right to the Pucks Posse community membership program. We've talked a lot about that just in terms of what you can get if you join the Pucks Posse community membership. You can also go there to pucksports.com, and there is a direct link there to the Puck Sports community membership. For those, if you're listening right now on the Puck Sports mobile app, if you're just streaming the show, which again, if you're listening to this later, we go live every day from 10 to 11:30. So if you're listening back on the podcast, Apple and Spotify, wherever you find your podcast, this show always airs every day, 10 a.m. live on the Puck Sports mobile app. If you haven't downloaded it yet, please go download it from the iOS store. And again, as I was just touching on here on the Pucks Posse community membership, this is what it looks like. I've sent out a link. I've tweeted it out at Puck 2040 on Twitter. The Pucks Posse membership, there's an explanation for it on the home tab. You go to the membership tab there as well, and you can upgrade your membership, $5 a month, and there's a discount for a year. What do you get with the Pucks Posse membership is we're going to have exclusive programming coming up soon, just in terms of some off-season shows we're going to do, including a Mariners off-season look at just what happened to the season, a look ahead to the upcoming season, NFL draft coverage, which will start as we get closer to the draft, and then, as I mentioned before, dynamic duos coming back, something that we did on the radio show years ago where we interviewed two influential figures associated with sports teams, broadcasters, personalities that have a connection to Seattle sports. That will be exclusive there for Pucks Posse community membership. But really just think about it as you're just joining a community. You're joining like a community radio. You're supporting Puck Sports, and that's what that membership entails. There will be a prize package that we'll be giving out starting there in January. A $100 gift package that includes $50 to John Howie Steak, $25 to Flat Stick Pub, and $25 there to Georgetown Brewery. Again, that QR code will take you right there to the Pucks Posse community membership. Also, you can just go to pucksports.com there for the very latest. All right, the DK trade speculation. This is something I wanted to talk about. We were going to discuss it there with Jim, and I can play you the audio from Mike Garafolo, because Mike Garafolo, who joins us every Thursday, we brought this up with Garafolo on Thursday's show. Last week's show. So last week we brought it up. I keep saying it was this week. And, there had been some rumors out there and some speculation, and Mike had said to me before we talked about, there's been some phone calls to the Seahawks on Mike Garafolo, on DK Metcalf, that teams have called Seattle, especially when they were, losing all these games, to, hey, what do you think? Would you move on from DK Metcalf? Now, there are also signs that would point towards why Seattle would listen, because next season is going to go to the final year of his contract. The other thing too is that he's gonna command a lot of money, and you just saw what the market was. Look what the Cowboys just gave up for a player that no one's ever heard of before, a 4th-round pick. So there had been talk and speculation that Seattle was taking phone calls or receiving phone calls about DK Metcalf.
Get traded. Okay. Now, like when you say listening, if I say, well, yeah, they're listening. Okay. Are they listening because somebody might say, here's 4 first-round picks for DK Metcalf? Oh, now we're going to trade him. I'm exaggerating to make a point. I don't know if the call comes in and John's on the phone. They go, DK Metcalf. Like I'm sure he'll finish the conversation. So no, but I do not see DK Metcalf getting traded. They know what they've gotten him. These guys don't grow on trees. They're big body, athletic guys. They are hard to come by.
Okay. I don't think there's a Seahawks fan out there that wants DK Metcalf traded. Maybe there are. Here's the problem I have with the whole story that's being covered, and maybe I'm just too involved in it from a media standpoint. What I don't like is people in this industry and local beat reporters who claim it's fake news and that it's being completely made up. And that there are just outside people like Mike Garafolo and Adam Schefter who just make up stories out of thin air. Because that's what was detailed yesterday. And that person was Greg Bell of the Tacoma News Tribune, who does a show on KJR, does our show, who just said it's made up out of thin air. No, it's not. There's a reason why Mike Garafolo said what he said. He said he's not going to get traded. But he said also that Seattle's received calls about him. There's a reason why Adam Schefter came out and said, no, he's not going to get traded, but they received a bunch of phone calls about him because it was a story. Because people did reach out to Seattle, did try to get DK Metcalf out of here. And did John Schneider immediately hang up the phone? Well, it doesn't sound like he did. But he probably didn't have any intention to trade him. So to come out and sit there and talk about how much it's fake news, that it's made up out of thin air, it's because you didn't have the story. It's because you have no intel on it. Because you're not connected at all about it. That's the story. Because what kind of bothers me about the whole story is this. You can make arguments on either side of why it may make sense to trade him. And then certainly on the other side of why you wouldn't want to trade him at all. This guy is an unbelievable talent. And that Mike is right. These guys do not grow on trees. You have searched long and hard for a wide receiver like this. And you finally found one. You finally found an offensive system that might just benefit him more than any other system he's been in before. And he's enjoying a wonderful season so far. But he's going to command a lot of money. And the Seahawks are going to have to decide, and they obviously decided not to do anything there at the deadline, but I do believe that they're going to have a decision on their hand once the season is over, when they get into the spring, of whether they want to keep him. And I do believe that that will be a serious discussion for John Schneider, especially when he sees and again, maybe we're using the Cowboys as a terrible example because the Cowboys are idiots. Because they gave a 4th-round pick to a guy that literally no one has ever heard of before. But when you start looking at the money that he will command, you're talking about deals, 4 years, $140 million, $100 million guaranteed for a wide receiver. Now, you've got contracts tied up next season, cap hits, all of it. It's not like you have a plethora of cash waiting for you. Again, they didn't deal him, obviously. Will they trade him in the offseason? Who knows? But what I have a problem with this local reporting is that it's somehow asinine to even bring it up. That they never received a single phone call about it. That they never contemplated it at all. This is the same guy, the same reporter who sat there and criticized people left and right when it was ever brought up that Russell Wilson may be traded. Ever. Spent hours, days, weeks, months doing the same stuff. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't have boots on the ground. You're not local. You're a national guy, so you're an idiot. That's what he was saying. And others too. And then what happened? Oh, I don't know. He got traded. Because I'm going to be honest with you, and I love local coverage as much as anyone. But on those deals, they're not being leaked to the local people. It's just now whether you agree with that or not. I mean, Jim and I talk about it all the time. Yeah, we would love for one of these organizations to leak it out to the local guys. But that's not how it works. That's not how it works at the NFL level. They don't leak it to the local guys. That information, whether it's from an agent or in this case, the organization, they leak it to the national guys. Because, one, if they want something out there based on the following that national guys like Schefter and Garafolo and Rap Sheet have, supersede anybody at a local level. Anybody. It dwarfs them. And so they know that if they want to get out something, that's the way to go. Thus, then, when a trade does go down, because of those connections that those national guys have with the team, with the agent, that's who breaks the story. But I thought people like him would have learned their lesson after the whole Russell Wilson stuff. When you just spent months, I mean, and not just disagreeing with people, like thumbing your nose at people, pointing your finger at people, and telling everyone how wrong they were, and how it's just idiotic that they would ever do it. Well, it wasn't, and it was a talking point. Because there was a breaking point with Russell Wilson, and there was a breaking point with this organization. They saw that the money that they owed him, and they needed to get out of it. And they decided to do it. Now, I'm not equating the Russell Wilson situation with DK just behind the scenes. I don't know what DK is like behind the scenes. I have no idea. No one does. But they will have a decision to make in this offseason, whether they want to keep him or not. Do I want to keep him? Yeah, I want to keep him. But that's the fan talking in me, right? I want to keep him because I look at this guy, and I've been watching Seahawks football, since I was 8 years old, when I can actually remember it. And I don't know, we've never had that. I mean, we've had Steve Largent. He was great. Brian Blades was fun. Joey Galloway for a season before he quit. He was fun. But not this guy. And he's phenomenal. But when you deal in a salary cap league and you start looking at holes you need to fill on your team, you have to sacrifice money someplace and somewhere. Let's just live in a hypothetical situation here for a second, okay? And you can manipulate the cap any way you want. Let's say you go spend $140 million plus on DK Metcalf. What if you save that money and spread it over an offensive line? I don't know. I mean, I'm just asking. Just think about that for a second. And again, I'm not sitting here trying to advocate to trade them and to get rid of them. But when you operate in a cap and you have to pay different players, we all know what is the single biggest issue with this football team. It's the offensive line. They're going to have to spend another offseason redoing their offensive line, by the way, because Tomlinson, free agent, and he's not good. Connor Williams, free agent, he's not good. Well, so there's two guys now. You have to replace two of those guys. The guy you drafted last year, can't beat him out, Oluwatimi. So right guard, well, Anthony Bradford's proven he can't play. And then the guy that you drafted this year, Christian Haynes, it was a scratch last week. So now throw on top of that the uncertainty of Abe Lucas. Hopefully he's back for the Niners game, but who knows? At the very least, you're going to go into another offseason for John Schneider and this team where you have to look at your team and go, we have to replace, again, 3 people on the offensive line. Okay, well, let's say they give Haynes another year. 2 people at least, but really it should be 3. So 2 for sure. We're playing spades here, 2 and a P. And I'm a terrible spades player, by the way. So 2 and a P, and everybody has ever played spades with me, they know who they are, they would attest. But 2 and a P. I'm just asking, do you spread that around, whatever money you would save, to pay for an offensive lineman? I just think it will be a discussion for these guys once the offseason happens. And I do believe that they took phone calls about trading him, and they listened to offers, and probably no one really blew them away. Blew them away to where it made sense for them not to trade him. Because that's generally how it works. And Mike is right. Had they called and someone got stupid and desperate, you'd be a fool not to listen to it. Because I can make a real valuable argument here, and I know things can change, and who knows with this team, because it is so unbelievably up and down with this squad. I mean, they are up, they are down, left, right. I mean, I don't know which team shows up each week. Let's say they're going to be dogs against the Niners. What's right after that? They come back. Is it Arizona? Right after that, I'm blanking on it. Or is it the Jets and then Arizona? I think it's Arizona, right? You lose the next 2 games, right? Now you've fallen to 4-7. Okay. You start now saying to yourself, the window to get in the playoffs is probably over now, right? Because, I mean, realistically, 10-7 is probably the mark. Most would say, right? 10-7. I think we all can agree. If we can agree on something, which we can't agree on much, if we can agree on something, we could say 10-7 is probably the mark. All right. Well, if they don't get to 10-7, but if they don't get there like pretty soon, you start thinking about, well, we're going to just now transition next year. I know that's not how they think. I know that's not how Mike McDonald's going to coach, and I know that's not how the players are going to play. But as an organization, you have to then start looking towards 2025. And I think you get into something that the Seahawks have not experienced in almost 15 years. And it's the dreaded R word, rebuild. And at what point, if it goes like it's currently going, let's say they go 7-10, 6-11, how do you treat the offseason? Because they haven't been in this situation since Pete Carroll and Schneider took it over in 2010, where I think you now then broach the idea, is this a tear-down rebuild situation? And if they decide that, then you got to seriously contemplate about trading them. You do. As much as that stings, as much as that sucks, all of it. Because I don't know how quickly they can turn it around. You tell me the quick fixes that they could turn it around. They haven't been able to turn it around. And again, I'll be honest with you. I think it's fair to ask is whether or not John Schneider can do it. You know, for almost a decade, and we've talked about this over and over, that he's failed to address the offensive line properly. We also mentioned yesterday that he has failed. The 2 things he's failed at has been this offensive line, and has failed at finding a proper replacement for Russell Wilson. Now, that was a great trade for Russell Wilson. He did it at the exact right time. The exact right time to trade him. He got he found the perfect team to get him. They took it. They got all this great draft capital. They got out of the money, all of it. It was a perfect timing by him. But where he failed is now there's not what was the next step? Because there hasn't been a next step to find a replacement for Russell Wilson. I just think that it will be a conversation once the offseason goes about whether or not you want to bring him back. Okay? Because with that 1 year remaining on the deal, non-guaranteed salary, Bob Condotta wrote about it today in the Seattle Times, a $31.8 million cap hit. He'll want an extension. You're going to be looking in the neighborhood of 4 years, $140 million, probably more. That's Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb territory, $100 million more guaranteed. You want to spend that money. Again, now you can take money away from other parts. Okay? Now, one of those would be, well, you're going to rework and certainly not have Geno Smith under the cap hit of $38 million. Okay, but well, then who's playing quarterback? So that do you understand where I'm going with this? Is like this. It's this snowball effect. Okay, you want to pay him, but yet there is no quarterback that is good enough to throw him the football because Geno's not going to get paid that. Now you bring Geno back at what? What he's going to command top tier money or going to want it. Now you just have to hold. You've got to hold your stance, but you're not going to get that. Who do you turn to? You're not Sam Howell. I mean, by all indications, people have watched practice. Sam Howell ain't the guy. If you want to go out and get a free agent, Sam Darnold's going to cost you money. You going to draft anyone? You've never drafted anyone except for two guys, Russell Wilson and Alex Magoo, and he's not in your roster. You're going to start a rookie in a year where the quarterback class isn't good, and you still are left with the biggest conundrum of this football team is what? They have lack of talent on the offensive line. So just to wrap it up, stop saying definitive things. Stop saying if stories like came out this week about DK, stop saying that it's made up and it's come out of thin air if you cover this football team. Stop saying it. Because you look like a fool later when they trade the player. You just do. And this sitting up on your high chair and pointing down at people and telling them how dumb they are for thinking about it, how dumb they are to even suggest it, to take shots at national media that, frankly, know the football team a hell of a lot better than you do. And I guarantee that. Stop doing it. Just stop. I don't understand why people didn't learn their lesson with the Russell Wilson trade. I just don't. I don't get it. When they acted the way they acted, and then it just blew up in their face. And then they're like, well, sorry. I mean, sorry. The other news, before we get to Ryan Divish, who will join us coming up here in a little bit, I asked this, and I don't know how I'm going to discuss this. I asked this to Danny Kelly yesterday. And it was just I'm just BSing with Danny. And I just thought after 9 games, because I don't know. My answer to this is I don't know of what I asked Danny Kelly yesterday on the show in the season. Mm-hmm. Is it fair to just they get the head coach right here? They get Mike Macdonald right. Is it fair to I'm just asking. Is it fair to at least bring it up?
Yeah, it's fair. I think it's
fair to bring it up.
Yeah, I think it's fair to bring it up.
Put you on the spot.
I do think it's fair to question with all the penalties, all the sloppiness, all the everything that's kind of gone wrong with the Seahawks over the last couple of weeks, like how much coaching has to do with it. But at the end of the day, I still am a Mike Macdonald proponent. I still think he's the right guy for the job. I just think everything that's kind of could go wrong has gone wrong for the Seahawks the last few weeks for whatever reason. And it doesn't necessarily bode well for what for the coaching, but or it doesn't reflect well, I should say, on the coaching.
Okay. So again, this isn't, I'm not saying, oh my God, they made the wrong hire, get out of it, move on. Just saying, I just brought it up. I think it's okay if you're a Seahawks fan to just sit back and look at this after 9 games and go, I don't know. I don't know if they got it right. That's what my answer to that question. My answer to the question that I asked Danny Kelly is, I don't know. And here's the other thing. It's okay to say, I don't know. You don't have to say, yes, you're an idiot if you think they didn't get it right. Again, we live in a world, especially in sports, it's okay to just say, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet. I don't know how, I'll be honest with you. I don't know how anyone can be sure. And I would ask this, if you are of the opinion that they 100% got it right with Mike Macdonald, 100%, why? Why do you think that? Why do you think that there is zero debate that they got it right with him? I would like to hear it. I'm not here to argue with you. And I'm not here to say that, well, you're wrong, and that because it's your opinion, by the way. I would just want to know why, because I'd like to know. I'd hear the reasoning behind it, because I just think at this moment I have zero clue. I have zero clue if they got it right. I have to wait to see how this season plays out and see what it looks like. Perhaps see what an offseason looks like. If he has more of a say on what players he wants, what players he wants to fit his system. You know, the one only critical thing or thing I'm disappointed with in the first 9 games in the 10-year of Mike Macdonald is they are just a sloppy, undisciplined football team. And I'm surprised by that. I think many people are surprised by that. I'm stunned by all of it. I'm stunned by the procedure, the pre-snap procedure penalties, not having enough guys on the field. Now, maybe some of that stuff has, because it's a new coaching staff and you're trying to learn new stuff and all that. Maybe that's part of it. But again, that's been a little concerning to me. And then I think, what was a little bit of a red flag earlier in the season. I don't know how much of a major red flag it is, but you got Tyler Lockett coming out saying, yeah, I think we could take walkthroughs a little bit more seriously. Yeah, okay. That is unfortunately a reflection on coaching. So, all right, we'll talk more about that throughout the week. Ladies and gentlemen, he joins us now from beautiful Montana. They call it America. It is Ryan Divish of the Seattle Times. He's joining us at a different time. We've asked him to move his schedule around. He said, you know what, I'll do anything for you because I love you. It's all brought to you by Chalet Bowl, Washington's oldest operating bowling alley, proudly serving the community since 1941. It's located in Tacoma's historic Proctor District. Chalet Bowl has been a family-owned and operated for over 40 years, delivering top-notch customer service and a unique 12-lane experience. Check out chaletbowl.com to book your next reservation. Experience the best in local fun. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I had to cut my local trip to my daily trip to Walmart short. I kind of wander around there. Sometimes people confuse me for a greeter, but like the gym, kind of where I go work out at, is up there. But I didn't go today because I adjusted for you. I might go this afternoon, but I end up between my girlfriend or my mom and dad having to go out to Walmart or one of the stores to run errands. My dad is the best when I get the text, because he doesn't text a lot. Hey, are you doing anything? No. Why don't you stop and pick me up a 12-pack and a can of Long Cut? Only in Montana. And I mean, and I go,
God, yeah, I love your dad. I want to be your dad.
And he like one of my kid I went to high school with owns this little gas station. It's got a little convenience store, a little hunting store in there. So I'll stop in there. So, give him the business. And so I'll buy my dad a 12-pack, and my dad prefers the 16s. So, you got to buy the pounders, a Miller Lite, and then Long Cut, Sometimes I'll have to pick him up some high country beef jerky to go with it, because that's what his diet seems to consist of. He's also a man that eats peanut butter sandwich on white bread, real butter, then peanut butter, and that's it.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. White, like Wonder Bread, and then white butter, bread. And then peanut butter?
Peanut butter, yeah. That's his preferred choice of...
He is an American god, is what he is.
Yeah, well, former drill sergeant in the Army, and he's still 77 years old, still ornery. We got the puppy. Wow. And so what they didn't realize, the last 2 times we got lab puppies, is we always had an older lab with them. So to teach them basically, like with our last black lab, she was potty trained by the chocolate lab because he used the dog door. She just followed him out and tormented him. Well, we don't have another lab to teach this little guy. And he's in the biting phase right now, the chewing phase. His teeth are sharp, and he's just a total menace. And so I look out today, I went up to my parents, and I look outside because I don't see the dog. And we got him to use the dog doors better. I look outside, I'm like, where is he at? And I look over, and he's in my mom's flower bed. And he's got a hole the size of the Grand Canyon, and he's just pounding out dirt. And I'm like, hey, and he shoots his face up, and it's just pure black from nose to eyeballs. and his front paws, and he comes charging through the dog door. He's going to run through my parents' house. So here I am trying to tackle this 30-pound little piece of little shit. And like, he thinks it's a game. So I got mud on my face and all over my clothes. I was like, and then he looks at you and he gives you that look, and you're like, you can't stay mad at him,
No, you can't. You can't. God, no.
So,
oh God, I love it. You have a great day.
Yeah, that's my job. Usually is like, my dad's like, hey, come up here and go exercise this dog. He's bothering me, or I'll go up there and like, now I've got to go up and put up the mesh fencing around this garden so he can't dig in there. I already did it around like this other flower bed where he was taking the lava rocks and trying to eat them. So.
Oh, they're a beautiful thing. It's amazing you're able to do all of this and then squeeze in a brand new Extra Innings podcast with Adam Jude, which you guys brought out this week.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a long time since you had one of those Extra Inning podcasts.
Like 5 months. I've Reggie doesn't pay me to do my own podcast, so I haven't done it. I felt like some people was like, why don't you go on the Extra Innings one? I was like, well, I go on with Puckett like twice a week. Yeah, we don't like him. Well, I'm sorry. That's kind of what it is.
Who said that?
Oh, you piss off a lot of different people.
Well, who doesn't like me? What did I do to people? I didn't do anything.
I mean, there are people that don't like you. I mean, there's a high list. I mean,
yeah.
Just partnering with Jim Moore doesn't put you high up there.
Yeah, well, you can't be loved by everyone. You know what that feeling's like.
Yeah. Before we get into this is something I was thinking about when I was at Walmart and then just kind of wandering around in my life.
Is Walmart the only store there in Havre? Is that why you go
Pretty
there?
much, yeah. They have an IGA, but that's about it. They don't really have a lot. So anyways, and just like my daily musings, like when I'm at the gym and hating life and, all I can do is the elliptical because I'm old and fat. And I was, listening to you yesterday lament about the Seahawks, and I thought to myself, and I'm, Adam and I were talking about this, of the major professional sports in Seattle, and I'll classify UW football because like they're paying players now.
Yeah.
So like Mariners, Seahawks, UW football, and the Kraken. Which team is the closest to winning a championship, like the overall championship?
Well, are you going to throw the Sounders and like the Storm in there too?
No.
Okay.
No, because I don't know really anything about them. And,
okay.
And while I get in trouble by people like even at our own paper who think that the Storm winning the NBA title is the same as the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl, it's not. So, but of those four, like who's the closest?
Okay. Of the four that you mentioned, who's closest to winning a championship? Oh, God,
national championship or like a world championship?
Yeah, I got you. Oh, Jesus.
I mean, think about this. Who's closest to winning their division or their conference?
I mean, honestly, I'd say the Mariners.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It's the Mariners. I mean, but I don't know. It's picking like the ugliest kid at an convention. I don't know. Yeah, but it's probably them.
Yeah, I mean, like, and granted, like UW's coming off of all the success.
Yeah, but again, it's new regime and everything, and
new conference too, like a much more difficult conference. And like even their what is it, the West Division of the Big Ten? I mean, are they that close? It's like you've got Oregon there. I mean, USC is a train wreck. And I can't wait for Jen Cohen to hire somebody, probably hire Kalen DeBoer away from Alabama. But like, is UW that close? What we've seen this year is no. And then compared to Oregon or even some of the other Big Ten teams, the Seahawks, I mean, I thought they'd be a lot better than they were, and maybe I was drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit.
It's a great question.
But, yeah. And then, I don't know a lot about the Kraken, and I'm sure Crabtree could come on here and give us a 30-minute dissertation on it. Reading his tweets, like I have no idea I'm not watching the hockey game, and I see his tweets like, "Oh, that was a close play by so and so," and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, dude. But yeah, so like, if all things being equal right now, go even like say like we'll go past the season for all the current teams. So like the Huskies, Seahawks, even the Kraken, going into next season, going into their 2025 season, who's the closest. Like even with free agency, draft picks, whatever. I mean, if you look at the Seahawks roster, can they fix it enough to be a Super Bowl team within one offseason? One draft, one offseason.
You know what? It is a, God, you got me thinking about this. This is a great question. Like of all, did you guys talk about this on the Extra Innings podcast?
No, I was just like, this is how I was, a lot of free time. And I was watching UW basketball last night and just kind of like thinking about like, how much it's going to take for them to get good again, compared to where they were. I mean, like, it's in football where it's supposed to be parity and it's supposed to make it even. The teams that do it right aren't even, because if you have the game-changing quarterback and you make the right decisions with the personnel you keep, i.e. the Chiefs, then you can offset a set of rules that are supposed to make it difficult for you to have sustained success. The Patriots as well. Eventually it catches up where like, you pay so much to 3 or 4 guys and you just, you're playing with a bunch of younger guys, but like, are the Seahawks 2 players away? Are they, like their offensive line, you guys talked about, they probably need 2 more legit offensive linemen. And how do you get it? It's like the Mariners search for hitters versus the Seahawks search for offensive linemen, versus like, like the Kraken, they need some guy that can score or something like that. Like there's always, I just don't know who's closest. I guess like the intricacies of baseball tell you that the Mariners are closer because of the pitching and because what we saw in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, whereas if you watch the NFL playoffs and you watch like the game-changing QBs or whatever, or the lines are keeping them upright, it doesn't seem, like the method to winning a Super Bowl doesn't seem to necessarily be where the Seahawks are at because they're not dominant in any one area. The Mariners at least can say they're dominant in starting pitching.
Like unbelievably dominant.
Yeah. I mean, we watched postseason where guys they were making bullpen starts because they didn't have enough guys.
Which is just remarkable to me when you think about the Dodgers. When you think about them winning a championship, and again, they've got Mookie Betts and they got Shohei, and they've got all this talent in the world. But
you got the World Series MVP, who's reigning in NL. He's an NL.
Yeah, they are right. But they literally, I mean, they acquired their best pitcher, somebody they acquired at the deadline. Going in the postseason, and then you're right, they had bullpen starts. I mean, it's just remarkable when you think about what Seattle had, when you think about what they had, right, Divish, and then what they would have had in the postseason. They would have had Brian Wu and Bryce Miller coming out of their bullpen.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing too. Well, they might not have if Castillo wasn't healthy, though they thought he would be. But then and it speaks to the season and the differences in the season, like that, the vagaries of a regular season doesn't necessarily portend to how you have success in the playoffs. I mean, like we saw that with the Rangers last year, where their bullpen was so god awful that they barely got in. And then because of the way it stretched out, you can manipulate the game.
Yeah.
And I do think like the Mariners were playing a better level of baseball in the last month of the season. And so that's what's probably frustrating too, is like, hey, and really it's like, it's just all of a sudden like everybody's crediting messaging and all this, messaging from Dan Wilson and Edgar Martinez and stuff like that. I mean, like, come on, man. It's not like they didn't hit the ball up the middle when they had the other guys. Like, it's just it's like, it's mind-boggling to me to think that like those guys struggled that much, but it also shows like how much when the one guy got super duper hot, like Julio, then all of a sudden they changed a lot.
Well, you and Adam talked about that, on the Extra Innings podcast, which is out, by the way, wherever you find your podcast.
Yeah.
It's back after 5 months, him and Jude. Just talking baseball.
We were trying to figure out how to do a live show every day, and then we figured out that we can't do it, so we just said, screw it, we're not going to do anything because it's too much work.
Hey, stop trying to get in on this. You guys come on here if you want. God, I mean,
I thought we were going to do an end of the season wrap-up.
We are going to do it. I will discuss I was hoping that maybe we tape it next week, but now whenever you guys got time. Yeah,
if you drive to Missoula this weekend, we could have recorded in the Oxford.
Oh, are all the guys coming out to Missoula this weekend?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're going to freeze to death. How cold is it going to be?
33 at kickoff, I think. 34.
They'll freeze. They'll freeze.
Yeah, Kramer's got like the Costanza puffy coat and stuff. He looks like he all of his wardrobe comes from an REI, so he'll be okay.
But I think he's used to the outdoors. He's
Yeah,
kind of an outdoorsy guy, right?
Well, he pretends to be, yes.
Okay, but the others aren't.
No.
Well, when you send me a picture when you go to the Ox, please.
Yeah, I will.
Thanks.
So anyways, yeah, back to Julio. Like, yeah, we talked about it because, like, to me, you know, like we had a draft of like the some of the themes of the season, but
Yeah,
we saw like, and even 2 years ago, we saw that like when he gets hot or when he's just good, not even like great, they're really good because he does a lot of stuff to influence the game once he gets on base or once he just consistently hitting the ball hard. He forces teams to do different things. And we only saw that for maybe a month.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a 3-week stretch here, a month there. You know, the injury hurt him, but I think that's the big thing.
Yeah, and I just think is, you know, we're doing this every week, just talking about off-season trends. You know, we've talked a little bit about Julio. We've talked about Cal Raleigh. We haven't talked since he won the Gold Glove. I want to get to the pitchers here in a quick second, but I was meaning to look this up. How many times, you know this off the top of your head, how many times in a season has a catcher has double dipped on the Silver Slugger and Gold Glove?
It's more than you think, just because of guys like Salvi Perez.
Yeah, okay.
And like I think Real Muto and Lou Croy when he was healthy. I think those guys might have done it, but
he's gonna do it, and it's a pretty cool club, man. And it just goes to show just what a hell of a season he had, and it's gonna continue to drive up his price tag. But you sit back, you're disappointed how the season went as a whole, but for him, the way he played, both offensively and defensively, the leadership he showed, just a phenomenal season for him.
Yeah, let me give you some names. Kenji Jojima, Miguel Olivo, Jeff Clement, Rene Rivera.
When you started that, I thought you were saying that Kenji Jojima had double dipped.
Oh, no. Rene Rivera, John Jaso.
Oh, yes.
Like the guys that could hit
Pat
couldn't
Borders.
catch. Yeah, the guys that could hit couldn't catch. The guys that could catch couldn't hit. My boy Rob Johnson.
Yeah.
Adam Moore. Like, and you look around baseball right now, like Travis d'Arnaud had a $8 million or $9 million player option for this year. He declined it, knowing that he's going to get more on the open market as a catcher. The Rays didn't have a catcher. They used, like, look at how many guys didn't have a catcher. And here the Mariners have a switch hitting catcher who hits for power, is the best defensive catcher in baseball, and is like one of the best leaders I've ever seen, totally commands the clubhouse, understands everything about the organization. As I said last night, or said on our podcast, Julio may be the face, but Cal Raleigh is the heartbeat and the conscience of this organization. Like the conscience of like, what do we do? What's best for the organization? That's what he does always, And I mean, these, especially in catchers, they don't come around very often. Look at, that's why I'm saying all these names. Since Dan Wilson left, it's kind of like now the Robinson Cano thing at second base. Since Dan Wilson retired, the Mariners went years upon years of trying to find Ben Davis, another good one there.
Oh, love Ben Davis.
Yeah.
Best known for?
I have no idea on this one.
Didn't he bunt with a no-hitter?
Oh, yeah, that might have been him, yeah. So you spent all Omar Narvaez couldn't catch. He could hit a little bit, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Tom Murphy, and he had one really good platoon season. And think about how people loved him just because they didn't have anybody else. So it's like, this is an anomaly, and they don't come around. It's hard to find good catching. It's hard to find catchers that are good at both, are durable, and then also understand the aspect of leadership. And so, dude's gonna get paid.
What do you think? I know you've talked about this before. What do you think he gets paid in arbitration?
I think he'll get around between 5 and 6, which will be a record. The highest is 3.5, I think, for JT Realmuto. Adam, look that up. in the first year of arbitration. So between 5 and 6,
which is still a bargain.
Yeah, according to Fangraphs, one WAR is worth $8 million in salary. Technically, one WAR. Cal's like a 3-WAR player, minimum. I mean, that's putting it conservatively.
Oh my God.
So it's like, I just think, I think he's, and that's why you can't, it's like the Mitch Haniger thing. You can't get mad at him because he took money this year and didn't take. Oh, I'm sorry. Cal is a 5.4 WAR player this year.
Jesus. And wait a minute. And I didn't know that. In Fangraphs,
they
says
say
each one WAR is worth $8 million.
Yeah, roughly $8 million. That's what it portends to in their their metrics or whatever. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, that's that's why with Mitch, people can be mad as, it's not fair he's getting this money. I'm like, well, he didn't get paid for the first few years, and he certainly didn't get paid after he took one in the beans and had to have 2 surgeries off of it, and all the screw ups that happened medically from there. So no, he's earned that money. A lot of times, you're paying for what they did in the past. Yeah, it's, come on, man. It's Twitter.
Were the people really were I mean, honestly, I shouldn't be surprised, but there were fans who were like, why is he taking the option?
Yeah, he should do the organization a favor and just retire.
The organization a favor, yeah. Okay.
And what has the organization done for him? Honestly.
Nothing.
I mean, he didn't even sign this deal. He signed it with the Mariners. Or with the Giants.
Well, he signed it with the Giants. He didn't sign it with exactly right. Yeah. I mean, they didn't do anything for him. We've talked a lot about the corrupt system that is Major League Baseball and how they pay these guys when they come out. I mean, Jesus. I mean, again, I know the minimum salary is an unbelievable amount. And again, all of us that are watching and listening to this and would take that in a heartbeat. And it's hard for us to understand, minimum wage is $790,000, but in the context of what they do and the money that they generate.
Well, you could look at it this way. John Stanton and Chris Larson are combined worth of billions, not millions. Yeah. Billions. How many times is 750,000 going to $3 billion?
Yeah.
That's chump change. That's that's like Softy wiping his butt with 20s, after something like that. I mean, this is different.
Doesn't do it with 20s. It's only 100s.
Yeah, I know.
Only 100s. Why wouldn't they trade one of these young pitchers?
Because they look at it this way, as this is their best way to win still by pitching really well, and hopefully they can piece together an offense. You're hoping that JP isn't quite as bad as he was last year, and Julio obviously won't be as bad as he was last year, so then that automatically ups you a little bit. Maybe you don't expect Cal to hit 30, but you expect him to hit 25. So then you're thinking, okay, plus a Rosarena is pretty solid. You like what you have with Victor Rojas. I mean, you may have to go over the idea of situational base running with him at times. So then all of a sudden you're looking around, you go, okay, well, we like our first 4 or 5 guys. Do we want to give up our strength to only marginally add to our weakness? It's like, you're talking about DK. Well, would you give up DK if you only could add kind of middling pieces to your offensive line or to your linebackers or whatever? It's got to be elite. And I don't know that anybody's willing to all offer somebody might. And the other thing is if you're strapped for cash, you don't want to trade the cheap guys like Bryce and Brian. They're cheap. You're paying them the minimum for a while. And I mean, although Bryce will qualify for Super 2, so he'll be ARB eligible after this coming season. But yeah, you want to, you don't want to trade your strength too much. Now, if they had, maybe they believe, if they look and they say Logan Evans and Brandon Garcia, their 2 best pitching prospects, they're the most ready. They look around and say, look, we think these guys are probably even ahead of where Bryce and Brian were when they were called up and forced into debuting. Maybe you can do this. But you'd always want to go with your most expensive guy, Castillo, trade him first. And then the toughest question, and I saw Hollander on MLB Network, and he gave kind of the stock answer, like, hey, we want to make sure we trade for, or we want to sign all these guys and be here. But I'm like, oh, well, okay, if you really want to resign them, then you got to make real offers, and that's not a Hollander decision. That's an ownership decision. So I don't know. Like, that's the question they have to ask. Maybe not this year, but a year from now, if Logan Gilbert has another really strong season and he's going to make $12 million in 2026, then you got to ask, hey, if we can't re-sign him, what do we do? Do we keep paying him, ultimately knowing, and then also have to address where your window is for success?
Why not shop Castillo?
Well, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're listening, but he makes the most money. He also has a no trade clause, I believe, and
he does.
So he has no trade clause. He makes the most money, and he's also the oldest. So I mean, that diminishes his value a little bit. Like I'm sure if they would listen to possibly offers on Castillo. What if the Dodgers call and say, hey, we'd love Castillo and we'll take the money and we'll trade you Gavin Lux. Then you have your second baseman. Then yeah, the Mariners should absolutely do it. And then just find a way to, you piece those other guys in, or you go get a free agent pitcher. But
yeah,
and that's the same thing. Or if the Red Sox say, hey, we'd love Castillo for Tristan Casas. Okay, left-handed hitting first baseman, kind of weird, kind of out there, but hits bombs. Maybe you'd address that. It's the money thing is the issue. I mean, the Mariners might have to pay a little bit money of his salary if they were to trade him, but I think you're going to look around at like the Dodgers pitching isn't going to get that much healthier, and the Red Sox need pitching. All these people need pitching, so it's out there.
If you did, let's say in a hypothetical, Divish, they trade Castillo. Do you think they need to then supplement that they've? I mean, listen, they're now they're down to 4 pitchers. Do they need to supplement that in free agency and bring in another veteran in, or can they get away with it with some internal solution in Emerson Hancock?
Yeah, I mean, you could go some combination of Emerson Hancock, Logan Evans, Brandon Garcia. Use those 3 at various points. I mean, honestly, Emerson doesn't wow you, but he's a solid number 5, with what he is or who he is. Yeah. And I mean, and if you don't trust that aspect of it, then just go get a number 5 starter. It is difficult though, swapping out a 1 for a 5. That's why the bat has to be elite if you do that. It can't just be and that's, like Jerry says, it's plan Z, but when you don't have necessarily all the financial resources to make plan A, B, C, D, E, F all the way through work, then sometimes you get to plan Z. I don't know. I think a lot of people I talked to in the organization just kind of thought they're just going to run it back with kind of what they have with minimal pieces added to it. Like, maybe add one more infielder. And it's fringy, like not the most elite bat, but I don't see them, we kind of figured they might have 20 to 25 million to play with in budget this year, maybe even less than that. Like they're not going to shoot it all on one player, and there's not even like that great a fit. Like we were going through the free agents out there, and like from an infield standpoint to play second or third, there's not a great fit. I mean, obviously there's Bregman, but like, nobody thinks he's coming.
There's nothing really in free agency. You're right. There's nothing at the 2 positions they desperately need. Second base and third base.
And part of that is roster building. Like when you build your roster, you can't just think of in the moment. You have to think down the road.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, it's fair for fans to be pissed off about not spending in years past to supplement. Like, the Padres, for all the free agents and all the moves, they didn't add them all at once. It was year by year. They added more and more, and I think that's what you need is like, you can't it's never the big go out and sign 5 guys in one class and try and make it work. It's add here, add there, even like with the Seager and Simeon thing, they added 2, but then they added more. They supplemented, they kind of piece it, I think that's where like the frustration level can set in is like, okay, you're looking around and you kind of knew what the infield free agent class was going to be like anyways. So like you're looking around and you didn't add. And then you get last year to a point where, okay, you need to add a piece to help your offense in the moment. Well, then you went outfield because that was best available. I mean, to me, I think it's this way. Maybe you just, if there's pieces out there, you can't get too overly caught up in like how your everyday lineup's going to work, projecting it. You need to just get as much, accumulate the talent and then figure it out. And if you have to trade from that talent once you've accumulated it, then do it that way. But I don't think you should just like limit yourself to only certain options, because they don't have the finances to sit there and be that selective. They have to be a little bit more of the, like I said, TJ Maxx type of shopping. You have to be able
I
to
love a TJ Maxx, and everybody does.
Yeah. You just don't want to try. You just don't ever want to try on any of the clothes. Wash them first.
Holland, of course, Hollander did talk. I think it was to Morosi, I think at MLB Network, where he said he identified second base as this is the spot we could probably upgrade. What is out there though? I mean, we kind of went through it. There really just isn't a lot of options out there. I mean, this is where, again, when they say they don't want to trade guys, it seems like the way to upgrade it would be via trade. Internal options, there's nothing on the horizon. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't think Cole Young's ready. And I don't think, Ryan Bliss is an everyday player just yet. I think he got exposed a little bit, no matter what your replacement at KJR might think. I think,
I mean, the guy that tells everybody that they're not going to trade certain players like DK or Russell Wilson. Yeah. And if you think that, you're an idiot because you're not local. But then when they do trade him, then you have to come out and go, oh, I was wrong. That guy?
Yeah, it was more like, I apologize for you misunderstanding me. It was kind of similar to Jerry DePoto's 54% apology. Like, sorry I didn't get my sense of humor on that.
I just don't know why. Stop doing declarative statements. You don't need to do it. Anything's a possibility. That's all you got to say.
I wrote that Robinson Cano was untradeable multiple times, and I was wrong.
Well, you don't have to. Anything is possible in sports. Just anything. It just
Yeah, exactly. Like, and maybe Bliss is an everyday guy. I've never said he wasn't, but like he looked a little exposed to some fastballs and stuff, and he'll continue to work, but like, that's their internal option. Go with Bliss and maybe a platoon. You could use Rojas and Bliss as a platoon there. I think that's kind of their last, or even Dylan Moore somehow in a platoon. Dylan Moore and Josh Rojas. If you get a third baseman,
you think Rojas is back?
Yeah, I mean, $4 million for a tender on a free. I mean, like he serves a pretty good purpose. Well, he's just not. I don't think he's an everyday guy by any means. I think, the thinking was though that like him and Urias could do that for a whole season and equal what a major league level third baseman would be a quality. That's just not the case. Like, how different would their circumstances have been had they just ponied up and signed Matt Chapman? Instead, like he was there, he was available. We were a week into spring training. Matt Chapman hadn't signed, and like how they just said, no, screw it. We need a third baseman, and we can use Rojas at second, and also as a backup infielder or whatever. Then that changes everything a little bit more, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course it does.
So I think he's fine. I think how they'll do it, but like there isn't like a great internal option. I think Cole Young's a little bit away from being ready. And that's fine. I mean, I don't think you really want to rush the poor kid. Now, if he does everything and plays himself into it by midseason, fine, whatever. That's a good problem to have. But there isn't one guy out there. There are teams like the Twins, the Orioles, Orioles, I think the Guardians. They have a lot of middle infielders in their system. Maybe you go get one of those guys instead. But right now, like I don't see an option where you sit there and say, oh, okay, we're going to do it this way.
Okay. Next week, I want to focus maybe on the first baseman options. What are they going to do there? And then eventually we will do our whole offseason shindig. You, me, Jude. Let's let the Extra Innings podcast breathe for a little bit. I mean, it's hot off the presses. People, I've listened to it this morning. It's wonderful work by both of you. I love the music. I thought you really came in with the intro, was really enthusiastic, a lot of energy with that. And then it's a wonderful conversation. I can sense when I'm listening to it that Jude is just shaking his head at you a lot. Yeah. That's what I appreciate about it.
Yeah, well, that's how we roll. But, You always sound excited once you've had a lemon lime Celsius. You pound one of those down. You're like, let's go. I'm gonna test that out this weekend. See how they mix with Tito's.
Hey, go get after it. Have a blast. Have a blast there watching the Grizz. Have those guys stay warm, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks, Div.
Yeah, see you.
There he is, Ryan Divish of the Seattle Times. He joins us every week for our cold stove look on the Mariners. All brought to you by Chalet Bowl, Washington's oldest operating bowling alley, proudly serving the community since 1941, located in Tacoma's historic Proctor District. They have been family-owned and operated for over 40 years, delivering top-notch customer service and a great, unique 12-lane experience. Check them out at chaletbowl.com. Book your next reservation and experience the best in local fun. In case you missed it, Divish's episode will be up on YouTube later. Also, check it out on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast, and, of course, one-stop shop up at pucksports.com. All right, let's make the transition now. We go from Major League Baseball. Now we head to the National Football League. He's in a hostage room, I believe. Rob Staton joins us. His weekly appearance, SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Talk all things Seahawks. It's brought to you by Superior Linen Service, family owned and operated since 1926. Committed to delivering the highest quality products and service to the greater Puget Sound area. Get a free quote today, suplinen.com. Give him a call, 253-383-2636. Check out all of Rob's work, SeahawksDraftBlog.com. It's awesome. Live video content up on YouTube, sensational. Man's pumping it out every day almost. Rob Staton Football, and of course follow him on Twitter at Rob Staton. How are you, sir? Thanks for moving around, adjusting your schedule. Everything good?
Fantastic, Puck. I wish we were talking about a better situation for the Seahawks, but we're not, are we? So we're here to get into it.
All right. What did you take away from the Mike McDonald comment? Everything is on the table.
I found everything, sort of the reaction to this game, very strange. Like Mike McDonald seems to be speaking almost as if they won the game at the weekend. That everything felt slightly bit too upbeat for me. And when he says everything's on the table, I'm kind of waiting to see that, because I would have thought after the Bills game there would have been a sacrificial lamb at some point, a D. Williams or somebody, a message sent to the team, and that hasn't really happened. He keeps repeating that they have all of the players that they need to get to where they want to go, and I'm going to say, well, that's fine, but can we see evidence of that? And the other thing I would say is it's clearly not true that they have all the players they need. They need an offensive line. Like, until they sort this offensive line book, and you and I have talked about this non-stop for months. And people will, hopefully not mind us talking about it again, because this is if the Seahawks are ever going to be back being a contender, the offensive line has to be one of the best in the league. And right now it is the worst. And to have Christian Haynes inactive, not even worthy of being a backup in this game, it's almost like the tip of the iceberg for how poorly they have constructed this offensive line.
That was, I kind of was late on that, and then I was doing stuff before the game, and so I didn't, I'm not looking at like Twitter to see. That's always like the first place you go to the inactives. So it wasn't until like in the game I realized he wasn't even active, and I'm like, oh my God, like that's rock. I mean, that's pretty close to rock bottom, Rob. When the guy that you drafted that high and you thought was going to be the starting right guard. I mean, my God, we talked about it a lot. This guy will be it. It has to be. He has to be the guy. He had glowing, remarks from his head coach and Jim Moore and all of this, and everyone was excited about the pick. And then, he comes out afterwards, and Mike McDonald's like, I had nothing to do with, his playing ability. We just have different schemes, and we wanted Ola Timmy active, and I'm like, that's not true. Like, come on, man. Like, I can smell BS all through the computer and my phone. And it's you're right. I mean, every week we talk about the same thing. It's the offensive line, and until it gets fixed, they are no closer to winning a championship. That's why I thought about this whole. I don't know how much closer we are to it, but it's been 15 years since we've talked about a rebuild in this town. And depending what happens here in the next few weeks, what they do on the field, that's going to have to be a serious topic in the offseason about stripping it down.
My biggest concern is I find it really hard to actually get a grasp of, is Ryan Grubb the right man? It's hard to say because the offensive line's bad. Is Mike Macdonald, has he essentially been thrown a hospital pass here by having to go and deal with this offensive line? Like, how do you judge him as a head coach when, you know, a defensive minded head coaches need their offense and the defense to work together. You know, you need the complementary football. He speaks about it all the time. How did he play complementary football when your offensive line's so bad? Like, how do you judge your quarterback? How do you judge your weapons? You know, how do you even judge someone like Charles Cross? If, you know, is Charles Cross worthy of a big extension in the offseason? It's hard to tell because he plays good sometimes, not so great at the weekend, but he's playing next to 4 guys who probably wouldn't play for most of the teams in the NFL. Based on the way they're playing at the minute, they wouldn't do. So how do you judge him? Like, everything about the team is hard to get a proper analysis of because the offensive line is wrecking everything.
Well, and think about it. Like, you're gonna go into another offseason where you're gonna replace 2/5 of your offensive line, at least, at minimum, because Williams is a free agent. Lakeland Tomlinson's a free agent. I mean, they've shown nothing that you're going to bring them back. I mean, there's nothing there where you're like, oh, I'm in. And then, I don't know, you still have no idea what at right guard. You have zero idea. Maybe Haynes has an incredible offseason and figures it out. And then the other one being, I don't know what to expect from Abe Lucas. And hopefully he comes back against the Niners and he's fine and all that. But at least 2 of them you're going to upgrade, and it's just another offseason storyline again.
Well, you know, you're talking about a rebuild potentially. I think there has to be some form of whether you call it a reset, rebuild, tweaking of the roster, because they don't have a lot of money to spend next year, and they're pretty much committed to paying Ernest Jones by trading for him, and he's had a decent start. So you would imagine, let's just assume for the purpose of this conversation, that they're going to pay Ernest Jones. That's even more money that's not going to be available to you, and then you have some difficult decisions to make, because I don't think, for me, it will not be enough to just go, okay, well, we'll spend a first-round pick and a second-round pick on a guard and a center, let's say, and hope that Christian Haynes takes a step forward, and let's just run it back next year. Like that, it needs more than that. And if you do that, you're not investing in any young quarterbacks. You're not investing in any defensive positions. There might be other positions that we feel are needs based on the free agents that you've got leaving. So it doesn't feel adequate to take a big step forward. You know, it feels like the Seahawks have been waiting for a transformational off-season for a long time. You know, they had one in 2012. You know, the good teams tend to need an off-season where you hit on 3 or 4 picks, you make a big free agent signing, you take a step forward. The Seahawks have been waiting for that off-season for a long time, and I don't think they've had it. And I think just relying on the draft to fix your offensive line next year is not going to cut it. You are going to have to make some difficult choices. Do you make a difficult choice with Metcalf? Do you make a difficult choice and go cheaper at quarterback, whoever that is, and not pay Geno Smith $38 million, potentially more than that because of the accelerator in his contract? Do you start hacking away and cutting, you know, certain players, the Lockett's, the Draymond Joneses, people like that, and hack away at these players who are not living up to the salaries in order to create some money? Is that enough? Going to create enough space to maybe invest in some veteran offensive linemen? They've got to do something though. And look, I'm not one of these people who thinks John Schneider needs to go tomorrow. But I do think ownership needs to say to him, "Look, John, you need to fix this offensive line. Like, this has been too long. And what you've tried in the past has not worked. By all means, invest in this offensive line now with veterans and free agent dollars." They've been hesitant to do it because they don't think the value is there. It's time to just eat it, because there was a lot of the players they've overpaid over the last few years. Do it at guard, do it at center.
And that's Robin. That's where therein lies the rub. That's why this topic this week, or that's been going on for 2 weeks, and I went off on it this morning, just about the reporting of people saying that DK Metcalf, fake reporting that it's made up out of thin air, and Greg Bell's been one of those guys who covers the team that's been on and on about saying that it's just fake news, it's not real. And I shake
just
my
like
head
the Russell Wilson trade. That was fake news as well.
That was my point. That's exactly my point. It's the same person that was railing for months about Russell Wilson. He's not going to get traded. Anyone that suggests that he's going to get traded, you don't understand. Anyone that says that they're thinking about trading him, you're not local. It's this national BS that's coming out. And he did it the same thing this week with DK Metcalf. And he's just flat out wrong. And I don't understand why he and others make these declarative statements that it's some made up storyline. They received phone calls. I mean, Mike Garafolo say it on this show. They received phone calls. Were they actively trying to trade him? No, but they received phone calls on him. And, who knows if someone blows you away with an offer. But they didn't, and he's not traded. But to suggest that it's not even a topic, I'm stunned that we're doing this again. I thought people like him and others would learn their lesson from the Russell Wilson deal. That everyone's tradable, by the way. There's no one that's not tradable in sports. That's the reality of it. You make an offer that wows you, and you're like, oh my God, okay. Someone comes with a Herschel Walker deal, to DK Metcalf. You'd be a fool not to do it. You'd rebuild they won a championship because of it. They were a dynasty because of it. I think in the offseason, they're going to have a long, hard decision to make because he's going to make a lot of money. He's going to command a money and a contract like Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb and all of these guys. And I would just ask even the most ardent Seahawks supporters this. Okay, fine. I love DK Metcalf. I want him to be on the team. But if you do that and you got to pay a quarterback, where's the money? The problem will still be there. And that problem is you can't block anyone. You see what this offense looks like with DK Metcalf. Yeah, it's great. But their record is what their record is because they can't protect the quarterback. The root problem for this team for a decade is their offensive line. And if you're going to commit all this money to specialists and to, the sexy players, you still don't, answer, the very core of the issue.
If they're going to pay DK Metcalf, I think it's as simple as this. Then you'll be watching Quinn Ewers play quarterback next year. Or you'll be watching Garrett Nussmeier, Jalen Milroe, pick Cam Ward, pick one. Because
not Cam Ward.
You simply cannot pay DK Metcalf, Ernest Jones, Geno Smith. Eventually you have to make a saving somewhere. So that's the point about there being difficult decisions to make. There is absolutely no point saying there's no way they're trading DK Metcalf because you don't know how they're going to sort of review this situation in the offseason. And personally, if they pay DK Metcalf, I've got no problem with that. I really like DK Metcalf like you.
Neither do I.
But at the same time, what I don't want is them to pay DK Metcalf and me to be watching this exact same team next November. Like I can't be, as a fan, I feel like I've got, and this is just me. I appreciate that my opinion doesn't really matter, but I've kind of got to the end of the road of watching bad offensive line play. And I sense that the vast majority of Seahawks fans are there. They've had enough. It's been a decade of nonsense up front on the offensive line. So go and fix it. And that means making difficult decisions with your roster. It means, as we have said, doing what Jim Harbaugh said when he got into the Chargers. We're going to be an offensive line team. We're going to be tough. We're going to be physical. I watched his speech where he gave about 17 game balls against the Browns. And he says, there's no better feeling in this sport than going into another man's backyard and beating them up in the trenches. And I thought, exactly. So let's do that.
And I mean, I'm not trying to listen. The Chiefs have a generational quarterback that we may at the end of the his time when he's over, maybe the greatest quarterback to ever play. He's had Tyreek Hill. It's not like he's got a plethora of these unbelievable wide receivers rolling out there. I mean, that's been the issue there. That's why they went out and got DeAndre Hopkins. But you know what they do have? They might have the 3 best interior offensive linemen in the sport. That's what they have. A great center and 2 unbelievable guards. And you know what they did on Monday night when they needed to get 4th and 1? They ran right up the ass of all 3 of them. And guess what they did? They got the goddamn yard. That's why they won the game.
If you can't, nothing encapsulated the frustration of this team more than that sequence at the end of the Seahawks final drive on Sunday. Yeah. Because you just think, okay, to a certain extent, I admire them sort of committing to the bit. They want to be tough and physical. So I actually think, fair enough. You want to be tough physical. You want to be a trenches team. And they ran 2 plays that a trenches team would run. But if you can't get a yard on 2 runs, then you've got massive problems. Massive problems.
Yeah, and you said something earlier, and listen, I can't, Is Ryan Grubb the right guy? Yesterday, Danny Kelly and I I asked him a hypothetical. After 9 games, do we know if Mike Macdonald's the guy? And I don't think any of us can sit here and go without a 100% certainty. And I'm not trying to this isn't a let's run him out of town and pull another Jim Moore and all that. This is just after 9 games, I don't know. And it's okay to say, I don't know. I don't know if he's the right guy. I need to see the season play out. I need to see the offseason, how it's going to shape up. I need to see him be a little bit more involved in the offseason. Remember, he wasn't involved at all in the offseason. Remember, he didn't go to the combine. He didn't do any of that stuff. So maybe he changes this year, and he's a little bit more active. Hey, man, John, I need these guys. This is who I need. So can you find those guys? And then we'll see. And then as for Grubb, I'm still high. I don't know, but I would say I can't fully, and you said this too, I can't fully evaluate Ryan Grubb or even Scott Huff because they can't block anyone. I would love to know for Ryan Grubb, if we could talk to him, be like, what percentage of the playbook can you actually call right now?
Well, I think it'd be a tiny percentage, and I think we'd probably be surprised. I actually, do you know what? I've thought a lot about this this week. And I thought a lot about it more when I listened to your conversation with Danny about what I think about the coaches. And I came to the conclusion that Ryan Grubb is his sort of philosophy, based on what I can tell it is, based on what we saw at Washington and what we've seen in Seattle, is exactly what I want from an offensive coordinator. I want to watch an offense that preaches being physical up front, and talks about the importance of the running game, but is also willing to attack every blade of grass on the field. That to me is exciting football. It's exciting when you can physically impose your will on another team. And it's exciting when you can throw the ball downfield and attack opponents. I think that's the offense John Schneider wants. I think that's the offense Ryan Grubb wants. But he can't run it because of this stinking O-line. And then with Mike Macdonald, I think what you've said is the logical, sensible approach to have, is that we just don't know, really. I think there's cause for concern that they have looked a little bit disjointed, like they've in some games not looked fully prepared to play the game. And I think that does come down to a very inexperienced football coach who is doing this for the first time and has not really got anything to lean on, hasn't got an experienced staff to lean on either. And I think he could probably use a bit more help than just Leslie Frazier next off season. But at the same time, I don't think there's any reason to sort of just hide behind he needs time. That feels like a very convenient way to avoid uncomfortable conversations, and I've never been interested in that. And
I would say this about him, that you don't have many blowouts in the NFL. Where most games for the most part are pretty close, right? I think we can look at, other than the Giants game, which is a weird game. I think you can look at these losses that they had and go, play here or there, it changes it. It changes everything. I mean, I again, as much as they were at the end of the day thoroughly outplayed by Buffalo, right? A better execution in the red zone, that game's different. I mean, they still had a chance to go into the intermission up 14-7 on that team. And then last week, the same deal. I mean, you had a defense in regulation that held that Rams offense to 13 points. I mean, I thought the defense took great steps last week. I was really impressed with how they looked and how they played. But in every one of their losses, there just seems to be, 2 to 3 or maybe 4 plays or sequences where it is cost them the game, and how much, those games on those particular plays, can sway the game. And you can say the same thing, about last week against the Rams. Now, maybe someone's going to say, hey, man, that's like every NFL game's like that. And you're probably some truth to that. But, and again, if they can just solve one area of the football team, I think it solves it. It solves almost all of their problems.
I just think that, again, it comes down to that, doesn't it? Like, if you have a great offensive line and a great defensive line, it's pretty consistent. You kind of know where you stand with it. It doesn't fluctuate. Like, the one thing we're seeing at the minute is, Danny Kelly raised the statistics of the EPA. I don't really understand. I'll confess, EPA, I'm not an expert on it.
When he says it, neither am I.
So I apologize. That probably someone will probably say I don't know ball or something like that now. But the point is that I thought it was quite interesting because it does chime. Like, Geno Smith had plays in that game at the weekend that you think that was unbelievable, and then he has plays where you think, what are you doing? And And that sort of fluctuating, like he leads the league in yardage, but he leads the league in interceptions. He has great, and it's got bad. But with the offensive line, but if you have an amazing offensive line, I'm trying to think of the amazing offensive. You mentioned the Chiefs, that's a good example. Like the Cowboys 10 years ago had a great offensive line. Every week you knew what you were going to get from that offensive line. There's no like having an off day from 5 great guys up front when they're blocking and they're doing what they need to do. And that's the way to play complementary, consistent football.
It's not only that they're just bad, Rob. They are, guys are within hitting him within a second and a half. I mean, it's just like it's a turnstile. Fisk, who was a second round draft pick last week, he looked like, remember, right? The Rams defense going to look real different without Aaron Donald. He looked like Aaron Donald at times. He was in the backfield so much. But it was like, it was just easy for him, I thought. And that's the thing that's the most troubling, aspect of these guys is just how poor they are up front. And I, to defend Geno for a second, because you're right, they're plays that you're just like, the ball, he claims that he was trying to throw it out of bounds, and then his arm gets hit. And I believe him. The one thing you could be critical of him would be, well, just get it away sooner. But it's easier said than done. He's trying to make a play, and it didn't happen. The other interception to Barner. I'm not going to be too critical of that one. That was a penalty, and they didn't call it, and they should have called it. But it's an interception. But he makes some throws. The 4th down throw to JSN, spectacular. It's just a spectacular ball. And then the touchdown, it's just beautiful. There's not a lot of guys in the league that can make that throw.
Well, the 2 throws before halftime and the throw on the 4th down that you mentioned, this wasn't just he converted a play. This is, this is physically unbelievable. These are world-class throws that are as good as anything you will see all season, and you sort of left, your jaw drops a little bit. But I think that's the frustrating thing is that I think you can argue anything right now. You can argue Geno Smith's incredible because of those throws. You can say he leads the league in interceptions. It can't all be somebody else's fault. That's an argument, I suppose. You can argue about he's got a certain standard, but does he fit the timeline of the Seahawks right now? Is this a team, like you say, that needs to reset a little bit? And if you are, is it worth having a $40 million a year quarterback, or should you go cheaper so you can invest the money elsewhere? But then equally, do you want to watch? I was going to say the Raiders, but I know that'd be painful. So I'll think of another team quickly off the top of my head. But you know what I mean, like Andy Dalton or somebody, the Panthers. Do you want to watch that? Like, because I get that argument as well. I don't want to watch that, but I also don't know what's best for this team, and that's the horrible thing about being a middle-class team right now.
They honestly, just depending on how the rest of the season goes, can they turn it around and fight themselves back to a 10-7 mark, 9-8? I don't know, man. That you're asking. I don't think it's possible. You're asking way too much of a team to do that.
Seven wins. All right, 7 wins.
Okay, 7. Well, let's say. There's a possibility. We did this exercise the other day, Jim and I. They won't be favored. There's a chance they're not favored in the remaining games of the season.
Yeah.
Not one single game. And you can make an argument, I know you can make this argument every week, that they really could lose all of them. Yeah. When you think about it, and I think depending how the next 3 weeks go really kind of will shape how I'm going to view this offseason. They lose the next 3. I think they've got to give some serious consideration, and actually should do it. You've got to strip it down and rebuild, because if that happens, you are no closer to getting back to winning a championship, and you're not going to do it with overspending on a wide receiver, and you're not going to do it with overspending on a quarterback, because the problem is the group up front.
I think it is everything that you've said is correct. And we have to remind ourselves here that I think after this game against the Rams, a lot of the reaction when I've kind of listened to the radio and the media and I've read articles, I can't really. I think, am I really reading about a team that's 1-5 in the last 6 here? Like, you have to be really bad to go 1-5, and also they've lost the last 4 home games. I'm thinking this almost feels like I'm in a parallel universe here, and the Seahawks won all of these games. We have to be real about this. They're on a 1-5 run. So if they carry on losing, if they can't win games at home, even if it gets worse than this, then the serious questions are unavoidable. And as I said a few weeks ago, I think people interpreted this as me wanting the Seahawks to tank for draft position. It's not. I think sometimes it's like, for me, either be a contender, either be in contention for the playoffs, or if you're not, let's have the reality check. And if we're not going to have a playoff season, I want to go into that off season with everybody on the same page. Fix the issues, not, well, maybe fix them. They kind of finished okay, so let's go again next year. Like, I'm not interested in that. We've done that too much over the years.
Yeah, I agree. All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for moving around times. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks, Rob.
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah.
I have a huge article, which is a massive behemoth horizontal board on the draft, which is going to be published on Thursday. It's taken months of work. So if people could check it out on SeahawksDraftBlog.com, it'd be much appreciated.
Okay, we got it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I should ask you at the end, what do you got? SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Go check. Rob is, again, I know many of you watching and listening to this already read his work and see his work on YouTube. And this dude, this is, I don't want to call it that's a side project what he does here with the Seahawks. He has a real job, BBC, and he talks about the other football. But the amount of work and effort that he puts into SeahawksDraftBlog.com and the YouTube channel, I mean, he doesn't sleep. He's a vampire, but it's crisp, clean, expert analysis. It's great work. So that comes out when, again, Rob?
Comes out Thursday, and just to make it, it's absolutely free. There's no paywalls or anything. Okay. So SeahawksDraftBlog.com, and it's all there, and it's a lengthy read. It's coming out 4,000 words to go with the horizontal board. So check it out.
If I put a cocktail in this, how many do I two cocktails in this?
Yeah, I think it's kind of breezy, but it's long, so you'll be okay. I think with a couple.
You're the best. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks, Rob.
Have one of those cocktails for me as well. Thank you.
No, I will right now. All right, there he is, Rob Staton, SeahawksDraftBlog.com, and I'm not kidding. The effort, the time, the resources that Rob puts in to his work is just phenomenal. I mean, and there's a lot. That's not a shot. There's a lot of great people doing a lot of great work, traditional media and non-traditional media, I guess. And Rob certainly, falls into like non-traditional, but it's just. He puts a lot of effort into it. And really the draft is kind of his baby anyways, because that's how it all started, was just looking at the draft and how it would benefit the Seahawks. So big article on the draft coming out Thursday. If you don't have never read it before, SeahawksDraftBlog.com. It's great. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel as well, Rob Staton Football. While you're there, go subscribe to Puck Sports if you haven't. Please leave a comment. We're up there. YouTube, we're there. But Rob Staton Football, and then, of course, follow him on Twitter, Rob Staton. Does a great job of covering the Seattle Seahawks, just from an outside perspective there for sure. His weekly appearance, Rob, brought to you by Superior Linen Service, family owned and operated since 1926. They are committed to delivering the highest quality products and services to the greater Puget Sound area. Get your free quote today at suplinen.com, 253-383-2636. Rob Staton Show every Wednesday inside the Puck Sports Studios built by Limback Lumber. In case you missed Rob's episode, it will be up on YouTube later. Also, you can listen to it on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast, and, of course, one-stop shop, pucksports.com. All right, let's wrap up the Daily Puck Drop with Hey, What the Puck? Brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle. It's your restoration company that lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. Locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when damages affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917. Visit them online at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. When you go in there and you shake the hand of Trent, tell him, go Cougs. He'll appreciate them. Guaranteed. All right. We didn't get to this earlier. I wanted to. I just need to know why Joel Embiid was suspended. And there is, in Joel Embiid, if you're not following the story, Joel Embiid got into, we talked about this actually yesterday or 2 days ago on Hey, What the Puck? And it had to do with Jason Kelce and all that. But now, since then, a suspension has come out for Embiid. And I guess I'm being kind of dumb here. I understand why they did it. The NBA had to do it. And from the perspective of the league, I guess I understand. As a human, I do not understand. Marcus Hayes, and we talked about this before, what he wrote now has since been taken out. Marcus Hayes is a columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer, and he wrote a column that was fair to a degree of criticizing Embiid not being in playing weight, not playing this season, and the organization not talking about what the injury is to his knee. Did he suffer a new injury? What's going on? Why is he not playing? We just saw him play all summer long with Team USA. What's going on? The problem, which was all fair and continues to be fair, it does. It just, it's because no one's talking about it. What was not fair for Marcus Hayes, a columnist who's been doing it for a long time, and this is something that Canzano and I talked about yesterday on the show, is that he brought in family members to make his point. And he brought in his son, who's 4, and then he brought in his deceased brother. And they share the same name. He named his son after his deceased brother. And he made the point in Marcus Hayes to bring up those two because when his son was born, Joel Embiid talked about, hey, I play this game and I'm available every night to set an example for my son, set an example for my late brother. That he said that before. Hayes then used that against him. Hey, you said that you wanted to set an example by using your son and your dead brother. And he brought that up in the article, in the column. He since has removed it. It was poor taste, and it was criticized by many, and then the editors made him take it out. Now, Hayes went there. He knew that Joel Embiid was upset about it, and he went, and the next day or after it had published, he went in the locker room and was there. And I would say good for him because sometimes people wouldn't show up, but he did. And was confronted by Embiid, and it lasted anywhere from like 2 minutes or so. And Embiid was very angry at him and yelling at him across the room, and then it came closer and closer. And for someone I've spent many years in a clubhouse or in a locker room, this stuff happens, and it happens a lot between a player and a reporter. Have I ever seen it get physical between a player? I'm going to say no, but now I'm going to remember something probably. I don't think I've ever seen it where it's become physical. He pushed him in the shoulder. Didn't throw a punch. Didn't appear like he was going to fight him, but he just pushed him. And so the league suspended him 3 games. Now, the joke about it is he was never going to play in the 3 games anyways. I don't think he should have been suspended at all. Not one bit. And I would say, what's the punishment from Hayes? Does he have a punishment? Does the paper say anything to him? I mean, he took it out and he apologized. But this is, again, this line we have crossed in society, and Hayes is one of those where you can write anything you want and feel like there's going to be no repercussions for it. And so I don't think that he should have been suspended. I understand those you don't want to, violence with violence and all that. I get that. And I do wonder, though, if people put themselves in the shoes of someone in the spotlight like that, when you start bringing up family members to articulate a point, for many of those athletes, that is the breaking point for them. And rightfully so. It's their family. You have a deceased brother and a young son. And I think Embiid had enough. I guess the NBA had to do something. You don't want to promote, quote, violence against reporters and media. And that's obviously has been, violence against media members has been a topic in our country, will continue to be a topic in our country and all that. So I understand to a degree why the NBA is proactive. But I also think the NBA should get together with I don't know what you call it, the NBA Writers Association. They've got to be credentialed, right, through the NBA, and have some type of punishment for Marcus Hayes, because that crossed the line. And I think Hayes needs to be publicly reprimanded there as well. Hopefully, maybe the league does it, the Inquirer does it, somebody does it. But I certainly don't think Joel Embiid should have been suspended for his actions. All right, that is Hey What the Puck, brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle. Your restoration company lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. Locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when damages affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917. Visit them online at restoration1.com. The North Seattle franchise. All right, that is going to be it for us today. Big thanks to Rob Staton for joining us his weekly visit. Also, big thanks to Ryan Divish. As I mentioned before, and Ryan alluded to it there, we will have myself along with Adam Jude and then Jim Duquette. We'll have a special off-season baseball show recapping the Mariners season and then also looking ahead to 2025. That will come out probably here in the next few weeks. That will be a part of the Puck's Posse community membership. We talked about this before. You can sign up. I'm sharing on the YouTube stream and also Twitter the sign up for it. The QR code on your screen. You can click there to join the Puck's Posse community membership. You can also go to pucksports.com to join that way. There will be some exclusive content, off-season Mariners, and then leading up to the NFL draft. And as mentioned, the dynamic duos coming back on January 1st. I'll reiterate this again. Daily Puck Drop and all of our regular weekly guests never, ever behind a paywall. But this is a community. This is my living. This is what we want to do, and it's supporting a community-based radio, I guess, so to speak, there on the Puck's Posse community membership. And again, starting in January, we'll be handing out a $100 gift package, including $50 to John Howie Steak, also $25 to Georgetown Brewery, and $25 to Flat Stick Pub. One lucky Puck's Posse member will get that each month. So you have to sign up. You can only get it if you sign up. Each month, we'll hand out another prize package. So you can get it there. Again, pucksports.com. Also on the QR code on your screen, you can sign up there as well. Another reminder as well, the Old Crimson podcast is out. Myself, Paul Sorensen, and Jim Moore, and Jamie Vinnick. That's out, as well as we dissected yesterday after the college football rankings came out, where the Cougs sit there at 21. We discussed Jake Dickert's contract situation, by the way, and it was an interesting comment from John Canzano yesterday that the issue may be Upper Campus not wanting to go there with a contract extension. Hopefully that resolves itself. I don't want that guy to leave. Cougs Corner with new Hoops coach David Riley is out there as well. Again, up on all the platforms. Just like this entire Daily Puck Drop on Wednesday, November 6th. Up on YouTube. Please please subscribe to the YouTube page. Leave comments there as well. Videos are up there. We separate all the guests, so they're up there separately along with the full-length show. And then podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, whatever other program or podcast platform you use. And then, of course, up at pucksports.com. And don't forget about the Puck Sports mobile app for iOS devices. All right, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Great show in the books. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Mike Garafolo stopping by to talk all things NFL trade deadline recap, DK, future of the Seahawks, all that stuff with Garafolo coming up tomorrow. Until then, as always, we promise to be better.
No shoes, no ties.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah.
I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you, but you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for? We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!